Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Two-Man Game. As always, we're your host, Connor, whatever you want to call me, as well as my brother, Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, man. Just got back, from work not too long ago. I went to the gym. I'm on my health grind right now. So I went and I could have eaten out. I could have gotten, took the easy way out and gotten something bad. But I went and made some chicken gyros. I don't know how you say
it. There's a Taco Bell over there by the gym. I know that.
Oh, there it is. And a cookout, man. And there's so many Chick-fil-A. There's so many tempting options there. But I went and made something relatively healthy. Got some fiber tortillas, made my own chicken, seasoned it. Made my own chicken. Yeah, I just made a chicken.
Yeah. You took care of the chickens in the backyard that we've always had. Yeah, for sure.
Threw some veggies in it. Not too shabby. I'm working on it's hot boy summer coming up, so gotta work on the body. Connor and I we're from the beach, so I gotta work for that. But otherwise, man, I've been doing pretty good. Just a little tired. I hit my legs too hard at the gym yesterday, so my legs kind of hurt. But it is.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've been good. We've been all over the place. Since the last time we recorded, we actually were both in Florida together with our dad to see some spring training games for baseball. If you didn't know, baseball has this thing called spring training, which is basically like a summer league type thing for basketball, except it's all the players rather than the young guys. And they do that in Florida as well as Arizona. Some teams kind of play over there if they still do that. But we went down there and Ryan was playing a disc golf tournament. If you watched the podcast before, Ryan's big into that. And then I know he's been playing some tournaments. I'm back up here in New York City right now. Might go to Oklahoma City in around a month for the beginning of the playoffs. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, we're just kind of chilling. At the moment, we finally settled down a little bit, got some more time to record another episode. And the playoffs are right around the corner. Teams are running down to the end of the season. I know the Thunder only have 12 games left. The Nuggets only have 11 as I'm looking at the standings here. Teams are almost done. Like the year is almost over. Playoffs start, I think, April 21st or 22nd, like right around that range. So we're almost here. It's really exciting to see the playoffs coming up. And so we want to talk about the teams that are probably going to be representing each conference in the playoffs at the moment. There are about 21 teams that have a chance at this point to either make it into the play-in or eventually the playoffs. And we want to go through each of these teams and talk about one of our big concerns with these teams, whether it's, something on the court, it's in terms of their health, it's if they even make it into the playoffs in the first place, because there's a lot of action happening with the play-in. So we're going to go through that. I figured we'd just go through the order of top of the East to the bottom of the Eastern Conference. We're only going to cover the top 10 teams there, and honestly probably won't spend too much time on the Hawks or the Bulls because I don't expect them to do too much. Although, as we're recording this, they were down by like 30 to the Celtics and they might have won, actually. So maybe I think I'm disrespecting them.
Put some respect on DeJounte Murray, bro.
Yeah, they're up 2 with 1 second left. They were down like 30 to the Celtics. I know some guys are sitting for the Celtics because they have the 1 seed wrapped up. But even still, it's a big win, trying to maintain that play-in spot. But yeah, talk about those teams. And then the 11 now, actually, in the Western Conference. It seemed like 10 for a while. The Rockets are kind of coming in hot. So we'll talk about them too. But let's start over in the Eastern Conference. Also, leave a like and subscribe if you're on the YouTube platform. If you're on Spotify, rate 5 stars, pre-download, all that stuff. Whatever you do over there on Spotify. Let's go ahead and start off with the Boston Celtics, who did just lose, I guess, to the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe that's for him to be concerned, but they do have the 1 seed wrapped up with still double-digit games left to go, which is absurd. It felt like the Bucks might be battling with them for that 1 seed all season. And instead, they've got it, it's done. It's over. They could probably win like 65-ish games. It depends how much they rest on the stretch. But to be honest, I don't have a lot of concerns about the Celtics. Like, even with their depth, that's probably the biggest concern, I guess, for them. But it feels like it's been fine. Sam Hauser has been fantastic. He had like 10 or 11 threes the other day against Washington. Peyton Pritchard's been solid. Al Horford's great off the bench. Like, I don't have too many concerns about them. Xavier Tillman's been good too. Really, I think the main thing is just that I worry about Jason Tatum trolling when we get to the playoffs, to be honest. And not even just him, but also like Jaylen Brown. Like
I'm going worried about Jaylen Brown trolling, bro.
But I think with the squad they have right now, if Jaylen Brown is kind of struggling, I think they can still win the East or even the NBA Finals. But if Jason Tatum is struggling, I think things get a little bit scary. And we've seen some times where he does struggle in some of those big matchups. He's been good all season, the best player, the best team. But there have been some games where it's like, Like for example, watching him against Nikola Jokic when they were playing the Nuggets most recently, actually while we were in Florida, like there are levels between the two of them. I think Tatum's a superstar and a top 10 player, but you could see that there is a gap between him and Jokic at this point, which Jokic is the best player in the world, so it makes sense. But that's the one thing I kind of worry about is like their superstar player, like their star guy. Not only is he not quite as good as some of those other players, like against the Bucks, Giannis will be the best player in a series. Say they play the Sixers, Embiid will be the best player in a series. And I think they beat both those teams. But it is something to keep in mind, especially if they do eventually go up against Denver, who are the favorites to come out of the Western Conference. They're not going to have the best player in that series. So that's one thing I worry about a little bit, plus the trend of where, for some reason, he loves to take the most ridiculous shots for no reason. It feels like when they get to the playoffs, he's been better. But yeah, that's kind of my main concern is that Jason Tatum just likes to mess around sometimes in the playoffs.
Yeah, my thing with the Celtics, and this might be kind of a cop-out answer, is that they really haven't faced a lot of adversity. So I'm wondering if the fact that they're not as battle-tested as some other teams might, do them some harm. Like that might be such a reach, like trying to just find something that could go wrong. But like kind of like you were saying, if Jason Tatum has a terrible game or they go down deep in a series, like they have been just crushing everybody pretty much all year, do they have like, oh shoot, like we're actually in some adversity now, like we've been in cruise control all season just beating the heck out of everybody, like do we have like that fight to come back? Because I feel like the Celtics haven't really had to fight, I feel like, all season. And once you get into the playoffs where you're facing the best competition constantly, I wonder if that might come back to bite them a little bit. Like, I'm not saying this like it's bad to be too good, but I just feel like they've just been in such a cruise control mindset for so long. And then I feel like they blow out teams like every other night. And just in the playoffs when you're kind of in the spotlight and like what you're saying, how Jason Tatum sometimes like he's had some really good playoff moments, but he's also had some games that are just like all-time stinkers and shots that are like, what the heck is he doing? And then same with Jaylen Brown when he sometimes has to dribble with the other hand. And
when he has to go left.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think kind of like you were saying, it's like hard to deny that they're like the best team right now and that they have the best odds to win. And you wouldn't really pick a lot of people to go against them. But if you kind of had to pick some like flaws, then I think that was what I would go with.
Yeah, it's like we talked about Jason Tatum in the finals against the Warriors when they went there. He really struggled in that series. There was, reports that he was somewhat injured, which I feel like a lot of players and teams are by that point in the season. Yeah. I do also worry about injuries a little bit. Porzingis has been missing some time as of late. So hopefully he's fully healthy and, good to go in the series, because if they go up against, Giannis or again, Embiid, even if they go up against like the Heat with Bam Adebayo down low or something like that, the Knicks who have some size, with Julius Randle down there, like they're going to face some bruisers, some big body guys. So they're going to need Porzingis to be healthy to be the best version of themselves. So I do worry about that still a little bit. Xavier Tillman being there as a backup, I think definitely helps their depth in that regard, but it's something to keep an eye on. I'm not super worried about the Celtics. I think they're going to win the East, but there are a couple of reasons. Like no team is invincible. The Celtics feel like the best team in the East. They're definitely not invincible though.
One more thing about the Celtics is Drew Holiday is known to shoot tour dates in the playoffs. So
he is definitely known to shoot tour dates in the playoffs. So we'll have to keep an eye on that too. Although at the same time, he decides to make some of the most ridiculous defensive plays you've ever seen. So just, got to find the balance between those two things. Up next are the Bucks, who have been looking really good recently. I know they smacked around my Thunder last night. Just really kind of locked in defensively against us. Giannis has been playing out of his mind. This is one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen from him. Dame is figuring it out a little bit. They've been better. I'll give them credit under Doc Rivers. Like they've kind of figured it out as of late. The main concern still to me is the defense. I mean, it's been a lot better under Doc Rivers. I think actually, if we take a look at, I'm going to pull up there. Maybe I could even share screen for this, get real fancy with it. Let's see, all season segments. I think post All-Star break, the defense has been 14th in the NBA, which is a lot better than what it was. It's still not phenomenal. I do worry about that a little bit. I also just worry about Dame in general. Like he's certainly been better as of late, but it's been such a roller coaster season for him.
It has been so many highs and lows. I feel like
they need the Damian Lillard to beat the Boston Celtics. If they're going to take down that team, they're going to need Dame to be amazing, especially because he's going to be going up against Drew Holiday. And
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah. So that's like, I think at the moment we are eventually going to get this Bucks Celtics Eastern Conference Finals that we were expecting, but the Bucks are going to be bigger underdogs than it seemed like they would be coming into the season. But if they want to swing the tide, it's going to have to be Dame. If you ask me, I think Giannis is going to do amazing things.
I agree.
He has in the playoffs consistently. I worry about, what's Dame going to do? Even with Chris Middleton, who's been pretty beat up and injured, when he's been playing, he's been good, but is he going to be on the court? If he's not, or if he's not 100%, Dame is the X factor. He's never been to an NBA Finals. He's made a conference finals run before, but he's never been to that spot. And to get there, I think they're going to need him to really like level up and be the guy they traded for.
Yeah, and kind of like where you were going off earlier about depth. Like I know we kind of harp on the Celtics not having depth, but I feel like they have like 5 or 6 guys that you can get that can get buckets for you. And I feel like for the Bucks that at times it can be a little bit concerning when you need buckets. If they start playing a crazy defense on Giannis and he has to pass out a lot, and Dame's having one of because I feel like Dame at this point is either like 40 or 10. Like I feel like it's almost no in between sometimes with Dame the way he's been playing. It's like super polarizing. So if Dame's locked up and Giannis is getting trapped, I feel like offensively there's like a little bit, it can get a little scary on that case just because they don't have like a Derek White or like if Tatum and Brown are having an off night, Porzingis can go get you 30. I just feel like a little bit in that department, especially with Chris Middleton being beat up because he's kind of supposed to be that guy, and I just feel like hasn't really even been on the court to really show that this year, and at times he just still hasn't looked amazing.
Yeah,
like he's starting to slow down just a little bit. And then Brook Lopez, like he can get you buckets, but he's more of like I feel like not a role player per se, but he's not like a go-to.
He's not
guy.
gonna. Like, he's very rarely going to go out there and give you like a 30. Like he's not going to do that like Porzingis can or Derek White or Drew Holiday.
We don't have that Brook Lopez anymore.
Yeah,
or even like
that one random game against the Hawks in the 2021 playoffs when Giannis was out and Brook had like 37 or something like that against Atlanta. I can't remember what the exact number was. But yeah, I don't expect anything crazy from him. Bobby Portis has been better as of late, but he's also had a little bit of an up and down season. He's not been bad, but I feel like he hasn't been as dominant off the bench as he's been in previous years. So there are a couple of question marks. Like Giannis, I'm not worried about at all. Giannis is going to be the best player in any series unless he goes up against, Nikola Jokic, arguably Joel Embiid, depending on what you want to talk about there. But he's going to be the best player in almost every series that they go into. They're just going to need Dame to be probably that third best or second best player, depending on what team they face, I think, to find the success that they're looking for. So,
and then I think also Doc Rivers going to beat the allegations.
That's true. Doc Rivers, he is facing choker allegations. That is true. So, honestly, I'm surprised we didn't even bring that up quite yet. I know you as a Sixer fan have been there.
I was. If you had asked me first, that I would have said that even before you said Dame. If you had asked me to lead on the Bucks, I would have brought that up first. I was just waiting for you to finish your point on Dame because I agreed with that too.
Yeah, the Doc Rivers experience has been a very strange one. Like I said, I think he's done a pretty solid job with the Bucks since he got there, and taking over midseason, it's not easy. But this is the regular season. We have seen Doc Rivers teams do great in the regular season and falter in the playoffs. I guess we'll see what happens here. I mean, Giannis is one of the best players he's ever coached. Maybe it's different this time, but I don't know. It's definitely something to keep an eye on because, we keep thinking, oh, maybe Doc Rivers gets over the hump. Maybe he figures it out this time. And, we know how that goes. You know how that goes specifically.
Oh, absolutely. For the next two teams, the Cavs and Knicks, I kind of want to group them a little, like at least for me, I wanted to group them together a little bit because I kind of had a very similar opinion on the two of them. I just think a little bit for the Knicks, obviously the Cavs have been ravaged by injuries kind of all season, but I feel like they're starting to finally get back like their main guys.
They are, except for Donovan, because Donovan, I think they announced today. Yeah, I think they announced that he's got no timetable yet for his return.
Oh, really? I thought he was more day to day. Is that right?
No, it still remains without a timetable for return. God, that was hard for me to say. Yeah, so Donovan's not back yet. Mobley just, he's been on a little bit of a minutes limit recently. Yeah. The Knicks OG, we still don't know what's going on with him. I feel like we've got no update on Julius Randle like all season.
Randle's he's just been there's been like nothing like because you think of like the Sixers and Embiid, like we've all known like Embiid's targeting like that April return, and now we're getting reports of him, getting back into practice and shoot around and stuff like that. Julius Randle, I feel like it's just been dead quiet. Like at least with OG when he got hurt again, we kind of got another like idea of what's going on. But I just feel like Julius Randle, we're just like one day gonna get a Woj tweet where it's like, oh, he's back.
Yeah,
but
most recent report, one today, does say that he hasn't been cleared yet for full contact.
He has or hasn't?
Has not.
That's bad.
That OG has been at shoot around, but he's still waiting for his elbow to calm down. We kind of knew that he was just waiting.
I feel like that's going to be something he's just going to have to deal with the rest of the year. I don't think I don't think sitting out is going to fix anything. It's going to be an off-season thing, I feel like, for him.
Yeah, but apparently the closest one coming back is Mitchell Robinson at this point, who's been out forever at this point. So
yeah, but kind of just like the whole thing about my Knicks and the Cavs is like the injuries, but also just like a continuity thing because I feel like both these teams have been playing with like so many different identities this year. Like the Knicks, they had like their pre-trade roster that was looking pretty solid, and then they made all these upgrades, and then I think I saw something where like, well, has Bojan even played with Julius Randle yet? I don't think he has, right? Because he was hurt.
They might have overlapped. They might have overlapped for like a game.
Like barely though.
I
don't even know if they have. I don't think they have.
I'll check Bojan's game.
I'm pretty sure Bojan's first game, they were like, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they played together yet.
I can't remember. I think it was like right.
It might have been a game.
It might have been after they traded for him, but he might not have appeared quite yet. Let me check. The first game he played was against the Pacers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Randall was hurt by this point. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so
Randall was hurt because I know he hadn't played with. I know the whole group hadn't played together yet, but yeah, Randall had been hurt at that point. So we haven't seen this Knicks team what they could look like actually.
And then Mitchell Robinson hasn't played with any of these guys yet. So I just feel like Dante DiVincenzo's got this new role, and he hasn't played with like some of the guys that have been injured since he's kind of emerged into like a more of a lead role. What'd you say?
He had 40 again tonight, by the way.
Who, Dante?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's gonna get bagged, bro. I don't know how many. Do you know what kind of contract is he on right now?
I think they gave him. How many years did they give him this offseason? They gave him. I want to say, was it 2 or 3?
Okay, it wasn't more long term.
Oh,
I know he was going like year by year back.
For some reason, I thought it was a bit shorter than that. Yeah, it's 4. So
because he was living on those short-term deals for a bit.
They got him on a $10 million contract right now, $12 million in 2027. That's a steal. The Knicks have done a great job of getting steal contracts between him and Brunson. They're gonna have to pay the hell out of OG Anunoby this summer, but you know.
But like my whole point about these two teams is just they haven't had any kind of continuity, and they both have so much talent on paper. But I feel like the fact that they haven't really played together with their full rosters, and there's still question marks on both teams' health. You don't know what version of these teams are going to get. Like, if I think both the Cavs and the Knicks on paper, if they're fully healthy and their players are playing to how they should, I think they could give the Celtics and the Bucks like a run for their money. Like, I think talent wise, they're kind of up there with them. But the issue is that lack of continuity, and they haven't played together. We haven't seen the best version of these teams yet, and the injuries have been all over the place. So it's kind of hard to predict. I feel like how much of a run they can make in comparison to like the Celtics or Bucks, like you were saying. We kind of like all expect them to be there, but I feel like these two teams, it's really unpredictable.
Yeah, the Knicks to me feel like they could be the second or third best team in the East on paper when fully healthy.
100%, I agree. I think they're the deepest. I think they're deeper than both the Celtics and the Bucks.
They probably do have the deepest team, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, Deuce McBride has been going crazy. Shout out to him. Got to talk to him one time with a Twitter Space interview that I did at one point. But like, he's going crazy. Dante's been great. Randall, before he got hurt, was playing great. Brunson's been all NBA caliber. Mitchell Robinson was great, and they've still maintained a decent record despite all these injuries.
Josh Hart, triple double machine.
Yeah, Josh Hart's racking up triple doubles, and Tom Thibodeau is trying to run him into the literal ground. That's another thing.
Josh Hart is the prime Tom Thibodeau player, man.
Oh, he is. He's the perfect. As soon as they traded for him, there were all those memes about how Tom Thibodeau was going to marry Josh Hart. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I also do worry a little bit about the mileage on a lot of these guys' legs because they've been so beat up. Brunson has had to play heavy minutes when he's been healthy, and he's dealt with injuries too. Josh Hart's been played a ton. Some of the role players who aren't going to be asked to play as much, like a Precious Achiuwa, for example, or Miles McBride, have had to run a lot. And, that'll probably be fine because, they get to the playoffs and they're not going to play that much. But I do worry about the mileage on their legs. Donovan Mitchell is having to carry the Cavaliers in the absence of Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Maybe that contributed to his injury and is contributing to it not really healing quite yet. They need him at 100% if they want to make any noise. With how deep the East is, if the Cavs go into a series with a less than 100% Donovan Mitchell or even no Donovan Mitchell against like Miami, that gets a little bit scary. Same thing with the Knicks. Or if you have to face the Sixers, if Embiid comes back and you're one of those top teams and you're still dealing with injuries, it's concerning. So yeah, I agree, kind of grouping those two teams together makes sense because they've just been completely bitten by the injury bug, like a lot of the top teams in the East have so far this season. I mean, you talk about, those two teams as well as the Sixers, who probably would be a lot higher if Embiid didn't get hurt way earlier in the season. So,
but I mean, I think kind of like just to wrap up on those two teams, I think we're not kind of like hating against them because I think we both agree that they're super talented and on paper they can compete with these.
I think they both have Eastern Conference Finals potential. If they were
the Celtics and Bucks kind of get put in their own tier, but I feel like the Cavs and Knicks, if they're playing well with their rosters, they could totally take them. And so, but it's just there's so many ifs. Like we just keep saying if this, if that, if this. So we're gonna have to see how many of these ifs come to fruition to see if we can avoid the inevitable Celtics Bucks Eastern Conference Finals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, It's just a shame we haven't seen these teams at full strength because they've been playing some of the best basketball that either franchise has in a while. When they've had guys on the court, they just don't have them at the moment. So
especially the Knicks, man, because they went all in on this deadline and they just haven't been able to play together.
Yeah, I mean, the team looks insane when you think about like a starting lineup of Jalen Brunson. You would have Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and then off the bench you've got Alec Burks, Miles McBride, Bojan Bogdanovic. Precious Achiuwa has been amazing for them as of late. Like you've got Josh Hart. I didn't mention him.
You didn't even say Hart yet. Yeah,
I didn't even say Hart. Like
six-man Hart.
They have so much talent on that roster, guys that can do a little bit of everything. I didn't even mention Hartenstein somehow. Like there's names that you think about, the first 10 names that come to mind, and they're all guys that could start for teams or be key role players off the bench. And the Knicks have all of them. They've done such a good job. They've just been kind of robbed this season, it feels like, because of those absences. Up next, we have the Magic, who I just made a full video on. They've kind of been like the surprise of the season in the East. They were that 2-seeded team for a little while, then they came back down to earth, and now they're back up here, 42-29. They've been one of the hottest teams in the league over the past 25-ish games. They're only half a game back to the Knicks for that 4 spot, and with them dealing with injuries and the Cavs as well, it's not unrealistic that the Magic could push themselves as high as the 3 seed. So honestly, for me, the biggest thing is for them, they have no offense. Like the offense is abysmal with that team. They're, I think, 21st or 22nd in offensive rating. The defense is top 3. Like that is lockdown. But beyond Paolo and Franz, doing their thing, and they're pretty inefficient in their own right, there's not a lot of offense on this team. It's just a lot of guys scoring around 11 to 12 points per game. They can't really shoot. So to me, they kind of give me some. What team was that? It was the 2021 Knicks, where they're this, I think they were the 4 seed in that season. They went up against the Hawks, and they were this lockdown defensive team that had questions offensively, and they kind of got destroyed in the first round. Like, I don't know if the Magic are going to get quite destroyed, but I think because they don't have a lot of experience and the offense really isn't there, I don't see them going beyond the first round. But I think the fact that they're even here is a big accomplishment for this team. Like, they could get swept, and I still think this is a grand slam of a season.
Well, because they were in the same tier as a lot of these really trash teams. Like the people I think we had this debate on a preseason episode. We were deciding what lottery teams were going to make the jump to like playoff teams, and you had the Magic in the same tier as like the Wizards, the Pistons, the Spurs, like all these teams that have been Rockets, like these teams that have been bad for a while. And the fact that the Magic have like absolutely leapfrogged all these teams. Like think about it, the Wizards and Pistons are still in the absolute cellar. The Rockets are like barely making a comeback after spending $1 billion in free agency. The Spurs got Wemby and they're still trash. So it's like the Magic have actually like been one of these teams that have done kind of like a full rebuild, and they're making like progress is being shown. And I think that's really cool. And I think, like you said, even if they get swept in the first round, which I'm not trying to hate on the Magic, but if I'm one of these bubble Eastern teams that are kind of struggling, I am really wanting to play the Magic as a matchup over some of these other teams. I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe it's me being an absolute hater, but if I'm Miami or I'm Philly or I'm the Knicks and you have to play one of these teams, like I'm picking the Magic every single time.
I think it's just because they're like they're a team with a lot of inexperience, but also they have a clear weakness on one side of the ball. It's not like, and we'll talk about the Thunder in a little bit, but a lot of people talk about the Thunder's inexperience, which I do think is a factor, but the Thunder are a top 5 team on both sides of the basketball. The Magic have a very clear weakness in terms of shooting and offensive production, which I think is going to compound itself in the playoffs. I will say, like, even though they might be a preferable opponent to some other ones, they're not an easy one by any means.
No, absolutely not. No team. I don't think any opponent's easy. Maybe unless you play like the Bulls.
yeah. Unless like the Bulls or the Hawks find their way in, I think every team's going to give you some type of significant fight in the Eastern Conference, which is cool. Like I think that about both conferences going into the playoffs. It's going to be really fun. Yeah, the Magic, I think just like they're going to be really annoying to play because they're going to try and hold you to like 90 points in a series.
There's going to be a lot of 90s basketball played.
Yeah, like if there's a series between them and the Knicks, it's going to be some disgusting, like grinded out basketball if there's still injuries, especially. I can't wait to see it. But yeah, I mean, the Magic should just be happy that they're here. Like it would be awesome if they won a series somehow.
We're just happy to be here.
Like that, I know that kind of sounds like demeaning in a way, but it has just been like way more of a successful season standings wise than anybody was really expecting. There were a few people who said they could take a jump. We talked about them when we made predictions about being a play-in fringe type of team. Like they could be in the play-in or right outside of it. And they've solidified themselves. It feels like as a playoff team, they could theoretically still slip down, but they're playing better than the teams behind them. So I think they'll end up there. Shout out to the Magic though. They've been dope. All right, next up are the Indiana Pacers. They've been very up and down. The biggest concern to me is Tyrese Haliburton, where he went from the beginning of the season.
Man.
It's been a struggle for Tyrese. He did have a really good game recently. It wasn't this one against the Lakers. He had 12, 10, and 6, I think, in that game. Not a great performance. It is kind of a Draymond stat line. He had 26 and 11 against the Warriors. Like, that was a pretty good game for him. But those are right around his averages earlier on in the season. He's been abysmal from 3 recently. It feels like that injury is still bothering him in some way. And if they want to try and make some noise in the playoffs, like, I felt like they maybe could earlier in the season, especially if you're trading for Pascal. They need Tyrese to be the previous version of himself. They need him to be that all-NBA solidified guy. And I'm just not quite sure if he has it at this point in the season with how beat up he's been. He and Siakam haven't looked great together in their time as a duo on the court. The numbers don't support them being fantastic, which I also worry about. But I think a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that he's been injured and he's not playing at 100%. So that's kind of my biggest worry. If Tyrese Haliburton isn't the Tyrese Haliburton that we know, they're not going to do anything in a series. They're going to get swept.
That's pretty much what it comes down to. Like, the Pacers, like, that's kind of why I feel like they took off early, was because Tyrese Haliburton emerged from being like an all-star level player to like a superstar level player. Like, when he was putting up 20 plus points a game and 15 assists a game and hitting these crazy shots. Like, when you can have a guy that can just as easily hit game winners from like way deep out behind the arc and do crazy dimes, it's like, how do you guard that? Like, you can't guard up because he's going to make some crazy play to get someone open, and you can't sag because he's going to make a great shot. And it just feels like he just really hasn't looked as, I wouldn't say locked in. I don't know if it's because Tyrese Haliburton, he turns up in big games, like, not to like put a bunch of weight on like the in-season tournament, but when he was in like high leverage games, he seems to like step it up a notch. So part of me is just hoping that maybe because the Pacers are kind of locked into like this middle ground seating, that maybe he's just like coasting. Maybe he is hurt and he's trying not to re-aggravate injuries that he's been battling all season. And maybe once the big games start coming up, he'll turn back up. Like, obviously he doesn't want to do bad in the regular season, but kind of like what Jimmy Butler has done for the Heat for so many years, where you think Jimmy's kind of washed, then you get reminded why he's really, really good still in the playoffs. So I'm kind of hoping we get that from Haliburton, because I do enjoy the Pacers. I love the rivalry they had with the Bucks at the beginning of the year and how everyone wanted to see a Pacers-Bucks first-round series just because it seemed like the Pacers had their number for some reason. But we'll see, man. I agree with you. It's going to come down to Haliburton, because as good of a player as Siakam is, they're not going to make any noise if he's the team's best player. It's going to have to run through Hallie and everyone else around him just meshing with him. So,
yeah, that injury, I do think he rushed back a little bit from that because he wanted, the All NBA. He didn't want to miss a lot of games,
and that's another big flaw with that whole thing right there.
Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love the games ruled or games played rule. Come on,
I was a hater of it.
You were. I'll give you credit for that. Moving on now, we have the Miami Heat. They are currently. Do they play tonight? I think they played last night.
No, I don't think they're playing
tonight. Yeah, they played last night. Smoked the Cavaliers, like destroyed them, 121-84. But before that, they've really been struggling. They did beat the Cavs a couple games before that, so it seems like they just have their number.
You don't want that first round series if you're a Cavs fan.
You don't, no. But they got before the game that they smoked the Cavs, they got smoked themselves by the Pelicans, 111-88. They lost to y'all, I know, 98-91 in a really gross game over there.
Yeah, it's so gross.
It's not been pretty for the Heat, specifically on that offensive end. The offense for the Heat is abysmal. They're the 19th ranked offense in the league. The defense is good. I'm looking at the post All-Star stats, which I guess that's actually fine. Top 5 defensively since the All-Star break, but they've been just the 19th offense. They are dealing with a lot of injuries. Tyler Hero has been out for what seems like forever. Duncan Robinson is missing some time, and he's really important to that offense.
Yeah, I was going to say, for a guy that was an afterthought salary dump hopeful, now he's like a really big integral part of their team.
Huge to that team. Like, they don't do much offensively without Duncan Robinson out there, which is, you would have said that years ago, but now it's way beyond just the 3-point shooting. It's now kind of some of just the overall offensive connecting role that he plays. Jimmy still typically turns up in the playoffs. He's been dealing with some injuries, and I do worry a little bit about how this Heat team is going to react, because they can't just keep doing this thing where they, make it in as a playing team. Like, I just don't have confidence in this Heat team right now. And that's the thing where, exactly, that's my main concern is I don't see them replicating the magic like last year, and not the Orlando Magic, but the Magic from last year. Where,
I was going to say, what?
Yeah. I mean, they both play great defense, discussing offense. So maybe they are trying to replicate the Magic.
Yeah. It's that Florida basketball, apparently.
Apparently, it's just you can't score when you're down there in Florida if you're a basketball team. They just don't have this isn't a formula that I think is going to work. You cannot again go from, especially in this way more difficult Eastern Conference. Like maybe you get lucky with facing some teams that are injured, but if you're a play-in team, if you lose that first game and have to play the Celtics in the first round, if you make it in, they're not beating Boston. I'm sorry, they get smoked by Boston. It's not happening. I don't think they're not beating the Bucks, if you ask me. I know there's that whole thing where like, oh, they can beat the Bucks. They've done it before. They did it last year. I don't think they're beating this Bucks team. I just don't think they are. And right now, they are the 7 seed. They might be able to pass the Pacers and get the 6th spot and potentially get a matchup against Cleveland, New York, maybe even Orlando, depending on how that shakes out. But none of those teams are just going to roll over for you. And I don't know how the Heat would score in the Magic defense, the Knicks defense either. You know, if OG Anunoby's out there guarding Jimmy Butler, he's cooked Drew Holiday before, so maybe he turns up. But I don't know if they can keep relying on this and just expect to flip the switch when you get to the playoffs. I know they've done it before, but I just don't have a lot of confidence. This doesn't feel like the same Heat team to me. And that's the concern, because we've seen them do it a lot where they don't really care about the regular season to get to the playoffs and boom, they're back. This Heat team just doesn't feel like it has that it factor to me, at least. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I just don't really feel it with this team.
They don't have enough undrafted players, I think. I think that's their biggest issue.
That's probably the problem. They're playing too many drafted guys, yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, it's kind of like what you were saying. They just really haven't, like, it just doesn't seem like they click. Nothing against Rozier or anything, but it just seems like this new kind of look team they've had just really hasn't clicked, I feel like, like towards the back half of the season. And I'm kind of with you. Like, maybe we're just counting them out like everyone does every single year, but they just don't seem to have like the edge that they've had in the past. Like, I don't know. They wouldn't really scare me in a series either as a Philly fan, but who knows? Maybe I should be more scared. Maybe I'm just going to eat my words. But
yeah, I mean, maybe last year I ate my words saying that they were going to get swept by the Bucks in the first round because it felt like they were going to, and they, always find a way to prove people wrong. But, again, maybe we're going to be on the wrong side of history. It's happened before, but I just think that the Heat not taking the regular season seriously is going to come back to bite them this time. There's too many good teams in the Eastern Conference. You can't hang out as a 6 or a 7 seed or, even an 8 seed and have the deep playoff run. I just don't think it's going to happen in this Eastern Conference. So
yeah, that's the thing. It's not like the West where I feel like 1 through 8, anyone could probably beat anybody on a given night. I feel like there's a little bit more top heaviness in the East, a lot more talent.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what they can do. I mean, this all stems back to the fact that, like, specifically in the offensive end, they look terrible as of late, because I've seen some people saying, oh, last year they were pretty rough offensively and then they turned it up. I think that was an anomaly. I don't believe they're going to replicate an 8 seed, 7 seed run to the finals again. I just don't see it happening. There's a reason it's only happened once or twice now with the Heat doing it, once before last season in like the history of the NBA. There's a reason it only happened once. You're not going to do it 2 years in a row. I don't care who you are. So,
dude, somebody clip this when Cone's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Someone do. Your Sixers are the next team up. I mean, I think the very clear thing is Joel Embiid playing? Like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, even with Joel Embiid playing, it's like, have the Sixers dug themselves too big of a hole where if we make the playoffs, it's going to be odds are we're playing one of these top teams, which with a healthy Joel Embiid and the roster's good enough around him that, they could probably, I think, take anybody theoretically if the team looks good. But the issue is that kind of like what we're going back with the Knicks and the Cavs, like Buddy Hield was like the Sixers' big trade acquisition. He hasn't even played with Embiid yet. So like, we don't really, I mean, theoretically that should work out awesome. I mean, Lowry hasn't played with Embiid. So like these, like two of the team's biggest, I feel like, players right now just haven't even played with Embiid yet. So that's going to be kind of a learning curve. Embiid's coming back after the surgery. Who knows what the heck's going to happen? Like, because the issue with Embiid and these like knee issues he keeps having during the playoffs is that people are just going to talk smack about him, saying that like, oh, Embiid, he's just a playoff choker, when really he's probably hurting still. He hasn't been playing for a while. So the narrative around Embiid's probably just going to stick the same. So I'm at the point where like, maybe this is just so pessimistic, but I almost kind of wish Embiid was out for the year and we could have just like taken the L this year and like gotten ready and got back for next year. Because I'm just really not looking forward to the narrative where Embiid comes back. He's like trying to ease back into it, and then we get smoked by a superior team, and Embiid's like reputation just keeps getting tarnished. So I don't know, man. I just think it's gonna come down to Embiid and how he meshes with some of the new guys, I think.
Yeah, right now they're the 8 seed, tied with the Heat for the 7-8 spot. Probably will end up in that play-in game. If Embiid's playing, like, he's going to be the best player in a lot of these series. And if he looks like the player he was towards the beginning of the season, he might be the best player in any series, putting up like 36 points per game.
He was MVP bound, man. MVP bound.
He was going to run away with a back-to-back MVP, it felt like, before he got hurt. I hope we see that version of Embiid. You know, he hasn't played in forever. We don't know what he's going to look like coming into this. It's concerning, but I do think the Sixers are a sneaky team. If Embiid is back and playing the way that he was, like, they're one of the teams I wouldn't want to face. Like, if I'm the Bucks, I would rather face like the Pacers or a Miami even than Joel Embiid coming back.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the Heat have the like history of beating the Bucks, but I think just the force that is Joel Embiid coming back, especially going up against that defense, which has been pretty weak all season for the Bucks, is definitely concerning, especially, you know, Maxey having that perimeter ability going up against like Dame and Malik Beasley trying to stop him. Like, that team, if I'm one of those top squads, scares me a bit more than some of those other squads, but that's assuming Embiid looks like himself. We don't know what he's going to look like. One thing I do think is a positive for the Sixers, even if they go into the playoffs or, you know, say they miss through the play-in tournament, or I guess this doesn't really apply if they do that, but if they go into the playoffs and even if they get smoked because Embiid's not himself and they just don't look great, at least you'll get a look at this kind of newly changed roster a little bit in the playoffs and see what you need to do with the cap space you have in the offseason that is already being established because Tobias Harris is going to be gone. So it's, well, at the very least, he won't be back on a $30 million contract. That's one thing you can take solace in, I think. So,
yeah, and it'll be interesting. I was kind of trying to think what lineup the Sixers would run. I'm thinking they'll probably do, I don't know if Buddy would come off the bench or if they would have, like, because there's a couple ways you could go about it. You could run small around Embiid. You could go like Maxey, Lowry, Buddy, Tobias, Embiid, and go like super small, or you could go, you know, Maxey, either Buddy or Kyle, and then go like Batum, Harris, Embiid. I feel like there's a lot of different options you can go with, and that I think with Embiid coming back to the roster is pretty deep in my opinion. Like the Sixers, I don't think get enough credit. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with Mellon. He hasn't played in absolutely forever either because he's been dealing with back injuries. But if like the Sixers were fully healthy, like their roster is pretty dang deep in my opinion. Like you have like so many quality NBA players. Like we got Lowry, Maxey, Tobias, Embiid, Buddy Hield, Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum. Like it feels like the roster could kind of like Mo Bamba's been playing all right. So I guess that's kind of cool. Ricky Council had his Linsanity run
shouts at the GOAT
a couple weeks ago. It just feels like there's like the team can make some noise. I feel like with the roster in theory, but I don't know.
None of it matters if Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. So
I'm not gonna lie though, like not that it would happen. I do think the Sixers, if like Embiid wasn't here, they could win through the play-in without him. I do think they're good enough for that. That roster could compete with them. But in terms of a series, I don't think there's any shot unless Embiid's playing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that leaves us to the bottom of the Eastern Conference. We'll go through this really quick. The Bulls and the Hawks are the last two teams. I would imagine that these top 8 teams are the ones representing the East in the playoffs. I would be surprised if they weren't. The Hawks and Bulls could theoretically make it. My main concern for them is that they're just not good teams. So
they're both missing star players.
Yeah. The Bulls are without Zach LaVine, obviously. Yeah. Trey is out. I just don't see either of these teams making it into the playoffs. I think I'm pretty sure Trey has a chance of returning, I think.
But even then, it's like kind of back to the Embiid conversation. Like if Trey comes back, is he going to be himself? So
I'm trying to see if there's any update real quick. I don't see any. Yeah, I don't, seeing upsets is cool and all. I'm sorry, I don't want to see the Bulls or the Hawks in over these top 8 teams.
I don't want to see them get smoked by the Bucks in round 1.
It's nothing against those squads because I really like what I like what the Bulls have done this season. I like I don't like what the Bulls have done in terms of building their team and not trading anybody.
But they played better than we thought they would.
They have. Kobe White's been great. Ayo Dosunmu has been fantastic. I like what the Bulls have going on with those young guards. And, hopefully Patrick Williams comes back great next season. He has that season-ending injury. I don't really want to see a Hawks team that has a beat-up Trae Young go in there and get smacked around for 4 games against the Celtics. I would much rather it's either a Sixers or a Heat or a Pacers. Like those teams are going to be way more entertaining in that. It's nothing against the Bulls and Hawks themselves. I think it's just the reality of the situation. But yeah, my concern about them is like for the Bulls, no Zach LaVine, Hawks, Trae Young's beat up and that they're just not great teams compared to these squads. So
for sure.
All right, let's move over to the Western Conference. At the 1 seed right now are the Denver Nuggets. It's changed back and forth between them and Oklahoma City every few days, but the Nuggets are currently the 1 seed, and I think they're going to win here. I'm pretty sure they're up like 20 right now on the Grizzlies. So they're probably going to go into sole possession of the 1 seed. It feels like they've got a good shot to maintain that. What's the big thing with the Nuggets for you? Is there anything that you're greatly concerned about? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. It's something you've been talking about all season.
I know I've talked about all season. It's just their depth.
Mm-hmm.
I just think if they have an injury to like a big guy, like I know Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. in the past have also been like I whenever I think of Jamal Murray in the playoffs, I always think of like those bubble playoffs where he was like going absolute berserk. And even last year in the playoffs, wasn't he pretty good too?
He was incredible, yeah.
Yeah. So Jamal Murray's a big playoff riser. Michael Porter Jr. I feel like is super inconsistent, but I just feel like they're both like really injury prone too. So it's like really scary to think that if one of them were to go down, that you'd be relying on Reggie Jackson to bring you back from the depths.
Jokic goes down. It's DeAndre Jordan time, baby.
It's probably their death, but I mean, in the playoffs, it should be fine because you're relying on your top. They're going to play a really short rotation, and like they're like 6 and 7. Like Peyton Watson's been pretty good.
He's been great, yeah.
Christian Braun's pretty good. So I mean, DeAndre Jordan is there. I mean, if you play those 8 guys, I mean, they'll be fine, I guess. But I don't know. It's just going to come down to the depth, and just make sure none of those injury-prone guys, get hurt.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, the Nuggets, they're really good offensively, which is the typical thing for the Nuggets. They've been much better defensively this season than they've been in the past. This is just a great team. They're top 10 in both categories. They have the best player in the world in Jokic. They're the favorites to win the Western Conference again for a reason. And I do think they will end up winning it. And I've just been, they haven't really missed a beat since last season. Michael Porter Jr. has kind of leveled up midway through the year. He's been fantastic. Jamal Murray's been great when he's been healthy. Again, has dealt with some injuries, and that does bring back up the depth question. But I mean, last year they only played like 7 guys typically. Like they'd play, or 8 guys, I guess, if they played Jeff Green a game. They would play Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, like those 3 guys, and then your 5. That's really all they needed. Like they would play Jeff Green at backup 5, and they still kind of walk their way to the NBA Finals eventually. Yeah. So they've got more depth, or not more depth, but they've got comparable depth, I would say. It's just more inexperienced guys now, younger guys, rather than like a Bruce Brown or a Jeff Green. And, we're going to have to see how that holds up. But yeah, there's not many concerns about the Nuggets if I have to pick anything.
Yeah, and the thing is, because I talked about the Celtics earlier, how they hadn't really been through adversity. The Nuggets have already like won a finals. Like I feel like it's a little bit different, like the best team in the West versus the best team in the East, just because the Nuggets have been there, they have won. So I feel like the argument I had for the Celtics earlier about like that adversity thing isn't as applicable with the Nuggets. And not to mention the Nuggets have had like Jamal Murray miss extended periods of time. There had been periods where Michael Porter Jr. forgot how to play basketball, and then he came back, and then he's looking pretty good. They have dealt with like Reggie Jackson having to be the number 2 or 3 option for a couple weeks because of injuries and stuff. So I feel like the Nuggets have dealt with adversity. Not to mention they've been battling for this 1 seed. It's not like they cakewalked into the 1 seed. Like I feel like it's been pretty back and forth with the Thunder and the Wolves for a lot of the year. So I don't think my argument there is applicable.
I made a video talking about like the pressure that every team is under. The Nuggets aren't under that much pressure. They've won 1. And the only reason I think there is pressure is because they're, looking to repeat. They've got the best player in the world. Jokic might win MVP. It seems like he's probably going to. Yeah. So like that's inherent pressure because you have, all these accolades, these accomplishments. But like they've won a championship. Say they went into the NBA playoffs this year, lost in the Western Conference Finals or lost in the finals. It happens. It's not the end of the world. So they're kind of just going through the motions at the moment. I think when you get to the playoffs, they are going to again look like the unstoppable force, which they already kind of have been this season.
Your
All
Thunder,
right. My Oklahoma City Thunder. The thing
experience drum.
Yeah, oh my God, I wish I could mute a word from my ears. Inexperienced is what everybody has been saying. I do think, that is a factor. I don't think it's as big of a factor as everybody's saying. I'm seeing people say they're going to, get destroyed in the first round because they haven't had a playoff series before.
I mean, Shea and Dort were in a big playoff series.
Shea's played in 2, one with the Clippers in his rookie season, and then his second year with the Thunder.
And that was a big one they won too, right? They almost upset, right? His rookie season.
In rookie season, they took that Warriors team to 6 games. That was the one where it was him.
That was when it was like Shea and Gallo, pretty much.
It was Shea, Gallo, Lou Will, Montrezl Harrell, I think was still on that team. He was going crazy. So, yeah, like he's been in some playoff series before. last season as the number one option. He led us to a play and win, which for some reason I feel like nobody brings up. Like, obviously it's not the playoffs themselves, but it is still postseason play. Like, it is still beyond the regular season itself. Dort was obviously huge in that 7-game series for us against Houston. Gordon Hayward's got a bit of experience. Isaiah Joe's been there, although not played much for y'all. So some guys have done it before. I also just, every time this team has faced some type of adversity, they've stepped up in a big way. Like, they have yet to falter very often. They've had a couple games like last night against the Bucks. They kind of struggled really early in the season. First game against Denver, they struggled, but they've got the best winning percentage out of any team this season against top 10 teams in both conferences. They're top 5 on both sides of the ball, half court and overall. Like, everything indicates this team is going to have playoff success. I do think inexperience, it factors in. You haven't been in those big moments before. I do think that is a factor. But probably to me, one of the bigger factors is just, like, we've been getting great play from all these role players a lot of the season. It's just a question of, how consistent are those guys going to be? Like, is Kenrich Williams going to continue to knock down the threes at his clip? Because we have so many guys shooting like career high clips from three. So, say in the playoffs, those dip a little bit. How do we adjust? Are we still able to do the typical offense that we do? Can they pack the paint on Shea? So for me, I'm not super concerned about Shea. I think he's going to be amazing. I'm not concerned about Dub or Chet. It's just, to me, more so a matter of, do we continue to get this elite role player play we've been getting all season, or does that wane a little bit in the playoffs? And we don't have like multiple all-star caliber players. Although I think Chet and J-Dub are kind of that tier. They're not quite there yet, but we don't have all these like all-stars that some of these other top teams may have. Like, I think that's one thing that could come back to bite us a little bit, which I think, to me, that's more of the inexperienced thing, to where these teams have role players that have been kind of more battle tested. I don't worry about the stars as much. So that's kind of my thought on the whole inexperienced thing. I know some people are also going to talk about like physicality going up against big teams. We do struggle on the board sometimes in rebounding. Honestly, though, if I had to pick like a big worry for this Thunder team, it's the presence of Josh Giddey out there in the lineup.
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that if you didn't mention it.
Yeah, like, I'm like, all those things that I mentioned are reasons that maybe the Thunder could underperform a little bit, but I'm not like super concerned about most of them. The big thing, though, I do think is Josh Giddey, who has actually been knocking down threes pretty consistently as of late. But even still, I don't think teams are going to guard him that much. They haven't all season. Like, there was one game against Dallas, the one where they beat up on us, where Giddey hit 3 threes in a row to open the game, and they still didn't guard him. They were guarding him like Ben Simmons, because if he's going to beat them from 3, they're going to live with it. They would much rather Giddey shoot a 3 than Shea attack downhill, hit a mid-range bucket, finish a layup, any of those things.
Absolutely.
Chet do his thing, J-Dub do his thing. Like, if Giddey is the one that's finishing the play, more often than not, you're succeeding if you're the defense. So to me, that's a little bit of a worry, because if they can just pack the paint, like say we play the Lakers, or a team that everybody's like, oh, the Thunder are going to struggle against the Lakers, I think we'll be okay against the Lakers, to be honest. But if they're able to, we play Giddey a lot and they're sacking off of him, they could theoretically just hit Anthony Davis on Giddey in the corner and just have him roam off of him. Like, just leave him wide open, don't guard him, and that way he can just wreak havoc in the paint. Like, that's scary. Same thing with Minnesota. They can put Gobert, and that's what they did against us multiple times this year, on Josh Giddey in the corner. They could have Jaden McDaniels.
You can do that with Jokic. Have Aaron Gordon guard Chet and have Jokic do that on Giddey.
They can do that too, yeah. And that way they could hide Jokic as kind of this, not great defender on the team relative to some of the other guys, or even you put Aaron Gordon on him and let him roam. Like, there's a bunch of different ways they can punish us for playing him a lot of minutes. And I do worry about that. I mean, the Thunder have done a good job this year of limiting his minutes for the most part. Like, if he's not playing well in a game, they aren't going to play him more than like 25-ish minutes, which in the playoffs,
been playing 35 minutes as a black hole. Like, that is something we noticed pretty early on, I feel like.
Yeah, which is good. I'm glad that they're doing that. I just hope that if we get to the playoffs and say game 1, we get smoked because they're playing off of Giddey and it's wrecking us, that Mark is willing to push him to the bench and even keep him almost completely out of the rotation. Because I understand, he's a young player. You want him to develop with the rest of the team. You want him to get that experience. But at the same time, we're trying to compete for something right now. We don't need him messing everything up. I don't mind if he's out there and he's, playing well and he's putting up decent numbers, not destroying everything. But I think against certain teams, he's going to be nearly unplayable. And that's my worry is, are they going to be willing to pull the trigger and take him out of the lineup if they have to? That's one of my concerns.
Yeah. And just one other thing before we move on to the Wolves. it'll be interesting too because Mark Daigneault hasn't really coached the playoff series before, so it'll be interesting. I'm kind of really interested to see like his rotations, just because you know this way better than I do. But the Thunder rotations are always like really interesting to me because I feel like on any given night you might see players that aren't typically in the rotation getting like heavy minutes, like, and that could be like a good thing because that means maybe Mark kind of getting a feel for like the game and be like, hey, maybe Andrew Wiggins getting more minutes this game, or the other Jalen Williams getting more minutes this game is beneficial due to a matchup or whatever, or like Lindy Waters getting in there to shoot some more threes because our shooting isn't great. So maybe that's a good thing that he's like making adjustments to rotations and stuff. But I do feel like in the playoffs, having to an extent something that's like pretty set in stone is, and like limiting that rotation and not playing as many guys is a good thing. I do feel like the Thunder kind of spread the love sometimes, so it'll be interesting to see how they adjust for the playoffs. I think that'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we play a lot of guys like you mentioned, and like the other night, Kenrich Williams had a DNP coach's decision. I think he might have had 2 in a row, at least one, I know. And then the next game against the Raptors, he was huge. Like he played.
That's what I'm saying. Like you'll have people DNPing and then play 25 minutes a game. It's like crazy to me how that happens. Like I don't know if that's like I was saying, is that Mark looking at the matchups and being like, oh, Kenrich would be better in this game, so we're gonna get him in there, or is just like, Kenrich hasn't played in a couple of nights, let's get him some run, see what happens, and if he's playing good, we'll keep him in there. Because I feel like that mindset is not gonna work in the playoffs. And I would really hope that's not how he operates. Yeah. But it will be curious just because, like I said, they don't have like, I feel like a set rotation. Like if you had like an 8-man, do you feel like an 8-man rotation is something that you could see happening, or do you think it's gonna be more like 9 or 10 guys, kind of like you would normally play?
I think it's gonna be, I would say probably 9 or 10 if I had to guess. If I had to build a rotation right now, this is going to include Giddey because I do think he ends up playing. It will probably start the typical starting lineup of Shea, Dort, Giddey, J-Dub, and Chet. And then off the bench, I think Case and Wallace has earned his spot in that lineup for sure. I could see him closing a lot of games instead of Giddey for us if we were okay with going small. Aaron Wiggins, I think, will play a good bit as one of those guys. And then I think like Isaiah Joe, Gordon Hayward could each play some minutes here and there. If we need a bigger guy, did I say Kenrich Williams already or no? No. I think if we want to go like more small ball 5, he could play those minutes. Otherwise, I think Jay Will goes in there too and he plays some time. So I think that's kind of the 10-man grouping or so. We'll see. I expect probably 9-ish players per game, depending on what the situation is and what the team we're facing is. Marcus said a number of times throughout his post-game press conferences, because people have asked about these lineups and stuff, where he said that they're using the regular season for experimentation to find what works and what doesn't. And I like that. You know, it does lead to a lot of fans being frustrated, like, oh, why isn't, like earlier in the season, Wiggins wasn't playing a lot at times. And I feel like part of that was the fact that we know he's good. We know he can produce, like, but we wanted to figure out what does this guy look like in this role? You know, what lineup works well here? And I do think that's led to us finding some good balance and some good like situations we can put players in. You know, what roles are people going to be comfortable with? How can we beat different coverages with different guys? So I also think that type of experimentation is going to be helpful for us going to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the lineup thing is also something else that's been interesting for us this season. I think it'll be fine though. But yeah, I think the Giddey thing to me is the big question.
I think that, and then I think size will be interesting too, just because like you named the rotation just then. I'm just like, dang, that's not a lot of size, but you guys have been playing like that all year, so we'll see if it comes back to bite you or not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, Minnesota is up next. For them, I mean, I think it's got to be the Cat situation.
Oh, absolutely. Like they were playing like one of the best teams in best teams in the NBA when he was healthy, and now you know, really, really unfortunate injury. That notification hit like a dagger, man. Like, not that I'm like some Timberwolves fanboy or something, but it really hurts me when I get a notification that like a star player gets a really unfortunate injury. It always sucks, no matter.
Especially a team having one of the best like the best years in franchise
of their whole franchise. Not even just like a good year, like literally that might be the best Timberwolves team ever.
It's in the conversation depending on how they do in the playoffs. Yeah. I do want to give them credit, especially Anthony Edwards. They have managed to stay afloat despite Cat going down, largely in part due to him being unbelievable. They are going to need him though back and playing at a high level to win a playoff series or even multiple. They need Karl-Anthony Towns back.
They need the offense.
Yeah. The offense has been really rough for them all season. He was giving them nearly 50, 40, 90 as a big man, over 20 points per game. There was an argument you could have made for him being all NBA. I don't think he was going to make it, but especially he won't now because, you know, the game's played thing. But he was playing at an all-star, very high level, all-star level. They need him back and playing at 100% if they want to make an NBA Finals run, which is the goal for this team. They've been a top 3 seed all season. I still think they could, give one of those bottom teams a great fight in the first round, or maybe even win a series if they get the right matchup with Cat not being 100%.
For sure.
But if you want to beat Denver or the Clippers or Oklahoma City, like all these different teams, I think you're going to have Cat back at a very high level to beat those teams, at least in most scenarios, I think. Like if Ant goes berserk and has put up 40 points per game, sure, maybe you take down a team, but especially like not with Denver. You're not beating Denver if Cat's not 110%.
I 100% agree.
Next up are the Clippers. Speaking of the Clippers, my main concern is the fact that they've just forgotten how to play basketball.
I know. It's almost like they didn't know how to play basketball. Then they remembered and were like unstoppable. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like, again, like everyone, like they're relatively healthy and they're just like not clicking. Like the fact that Philly played the way they did against them the other day is just absolutely unreal to me. Like that should not happen with the state of Philly's roster currently. That is just...
Yeah, the Russ injury. He's coming back today, I think. Are they playing tonight or tomorrow?
The Clippers, they're not playing tonight.
They're not playing tonight? Okay, it might be tomorrow. I'm checking their schedule real quick.
I guess that really did hurt. Maybe I wonder, was it Russ the whole time? Was Russ that important?
I mean, I don't know. Like,
their big three definitely playing.
It definitely feels like they miss him off the bench. Like their bench units have really struggled without him. It's felt like the downhill pressure, the rim pressure that he brings to the table, I think is important, as well as just being one of their better guard defenders when he locks in. But I don't think it's all Russ. Like the team is not clicked super well. Paul George has been struggling a lot after a great start to the season. It's been pretty up and down as of late. I know a lot of Clippers fans are really upset with him and don't even want to bring him back at this point, or at least not for a big contract like it seems like he's demanding.
A lot of teams would take him.
Part of me wonders if, because he and the Clippers, like he talked about earlier on the season, how he and the Clippers want to agree on a contract extension. Part of me wonders if the fact that they haven't done that is messing with him or the chemistry of the team. Like if they don't know if PG is going to return. Because I mean, whenever they've asked Ty Lue after the game, they've been like, what's going wrong? He's like, we're just not on the same page. We don't have the right mindset. We're not focused. But they've been saying that for like 3 weeks. Like, how have you not fixed this issue by now as a veteran-led team? It's not like they're this young squad that's faltering towards the end of a season. It's a team that has been there and done this before, has multiple guys who have won championships. It just feels strange to me. So I wonder if there's something like that going on behind the scenes where
Harden team cancer.
Yeah. I mean, Harden also is a free agent. Like he hasn't signed an extension or anything. Yeah. So there's him, there's PG. Kawhi is the only one of those three who's, locked up long-term. I don't know. I wonder if that's bothering them a little bit, but they've just got some bad losses in here. Like they got blown up by Atlanta a few days ago. I got destroyed by y'all last night, or not last night, but last night.
Oh, last night.
They are actually playing tonight against the Pacers. That game just started.
Oh, okay.
They're not like they got destroyed by the Timberwolves in a game that I think they led by significantly, or at least one of these games against Minnesota, they led by a lot. And then the lead was completely evaporated out of nowhere. They just fell apart.
It's not even like losses. They're like bad losses. Like it's not like they're like facing tough, like playing tough games.
Mm-hmm. Like they've got some solid wins here and there, but it feels like, and there was some stat that said the Clippers were really bad against like the top 4 teams in each conference. Like they've struggled against those top squads. I know for us, like most recently when we played them, we destroyed them 129-107 because I have their schedule pulled up here. I don't have that off the top of my head, although that would be impressive. Yeah, man, it's just strange. Like, I mean, like you said, they didn't know how to play. They were like, oh, cool, this is how we play. And they looked unstoppable. They became a lot of people's pick to win the West. And now they're only half a game up on the Pelicans. If they lose tonight, they're tied at the 4 and the 5 spot, which is crazy because they had a point where they had the 1 seed. They were the lone team at the top of the Western Conference for a day. And then from that point on, they just don't know what to do. And maybe they get to the playoffs because they're just losing focus and they lock back in.
Yeah, maybe it's that thing like Harden, George, Kawhi, like they have so much playoff experience. Like it's funny, we've been talking about lack of experience for a lot of teams. We didn't even mention lack of experience for the Wolves since they don't really have a lot either, just because the Towns thing is such a big deal. But it's like there's probably not many rosters where like your top a couple players have as much experience as those 3 dudes. So it's almost like, do they just like not care? Like, are they just in coasting mode? And they just like, and then when the playoffs come, they're just going to be like, all right, lock in, boys. Let's get the chemistry. Let's get cooking. But it's hard to tell. Like you don't really know. I don't know. And it's going to be discouraging for like Ty Lue to be out there and say they're not focused. Like we all see it from our end. And then for the coach to come out and say it too, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's not great. They're playing the Pacers right now. If they get this win, maybe gets them back on track. The Pacers have been faltering. They're up 3 at the moment. We'll see, though. It's not been pretty for them. And if they fall, they're in a really bad spot. Getting that 2 or 3 seed is important to trying to make a run, because if you're at the 4 or the 5 spot, even if you beat the Pelicans, who at this point, the Pelicans could give this Clippers team a good run for their money. The Pelicans have been one of the best teams in the league as of late, while the Clippers have been falling a lot. I could see the Pelicans taking them down in a series. And if that happens, what do you do from here? Where do you go if you don't win?
It's such a failure. You trade all that for Harden and then you lose.
There's so much pressure on them, because they could also lose PG theoretically, or even if you run this thing back like this, when they were playing well with Harden, felt like the best chance that they've had in a long time, maybe ever in this Paul George Kawhi Leonard era,
I think probably ever,
to get a title. If you don't do it now, where do you go from here? Because you've used all your assets to upgrade. You have a big 3 now, and even if you retain them, they're all getting older. They're all injury prone. Right now, you have them fully healthy, at least for the most part. Kawhi was doing with a back thing, and PG always has something going on, it feels like. But at least all of them are playing.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's concerning, I would say. Maybe even the most concerning part of this whole thing is that, I'm always concerned about them getting hurt. But they're healthy right now, and they're still playing bad. Russ, of course, again, is someone that's been missing time, but their 3 best players have been healthy.
The main dudes.
Yeah, their 3 best players have been healthy, and you're seeing teams all over the NBA. We just talked about the Timberwolves. Cat has been out, and Cat is significantly more important to what the Wolves do than what Russ does to the Clippers, and I love Russ. And they're still finding ways to get a lot of wins, while the Clippers are falling down the standings more and more.
Half the Knicks roster's out, and they've been keeping a top seed.
Exactly. So they are worrying me. I still think they're really good, but I don't know if they're as good as those top 3 teams in the West, at least not right now. Again, maybe they get to the playoffs and just refocus, but it's been really ugly as of late for them. So.
I think we'll have no way to tell. I think that first playoff game will be so telling. I just think there's really no way to tell until we see that first game.
Yeah. I mean, if you lose first round or home court in the first round too, that's rough. Say the Pelicans grab that spot. And even if you win that, you'll have to play the Denver Nuggets in a second round series. That's a rough path. They've made it so much harder on themselves. If they landed as the 1 or the 2 or the 3 seed, they would have been golden. But
how much are they back in Minnesota?
They are now 4.5 games back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not overcoming that. Because it felt like when Cat went down, it's it might be Nuggets, Thunder, Clippers in some order, because the Wolves are going to fall because Cat has gone out. And instead, they've risen and the Clippers have fallen apart. So. All right, next up are the Pelicans. They're the next team. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a
BI, right? BI's health with his injury.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have a ton for this Pelicans team. They've been great outside of the Brandon Ingram injury, but that is concerning. I think he's back in a couple of weeks, I believe. And to me, I mean, this team, like we've mentioned with a lot of squads, I do think it comes down to health. When they've been healthy, they've looked amazing, but it's been rare that we've gotten the Pelicans healthy for any significant time. We've seen it a lot this season, so part of me is worried that it means, and I mean, Ingram did get hurt, although that was kind of like a freak accident. Yeah. But part of me is worried that the injuries are going to start to pop up now, which I really hope they don't, because the Pelicans have been so much fun to watch. We'll have to see, though. That's kind of concerning.
It's just nice to see them clicking, because I feel like they've been such a bubble team for so long. It's nice to see them actually rise with their guys that were supposed to take them out of the gutter. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Sham's latest update on Brandon Ingram, he's going to be out about 2 weeks, maybe 3. The hope is as April starts to get going, he'll be back in the lineup. So fingers crossed he's back right around then. And
I'm just glad he avoided something serious, man. I think we were all pretty concerned that he was down for the count.
Because there have been a lot of those knee injuries that have been popping up this season with Şengün and, Saddiq Bey tore his ACL. Ingram had that happen. There was someone else too. Can't remember who it was, but
it happened right around the other 2 guys. I don't remember either, but I know what you're talking about.
Just a bunch of random knee injuries that have popped up. A lot of freak injuries in general. Remember when Tyrese Haliburton did the splits and that's how he got hurt? Just random stuff has been popping up, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, when the Pelicans have been healthy, they've been amazing. Like you said, been one of those teams that's been on the fringe for a lot of times. It's just a matter of if they could keep everyone on the court. And when they have, they've been really good. So
my only thing with them, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this because I think I've said this on so many episodes, is that it'll be interesting because they do have 3 all-star level players, or maybe CJ's borderline all-star.
Yeah.
But and some good role players. But it'll be interesting because I don't think they have like a top 10 player like most of these other teams do. So it'll be interesting to see if like them having a bunch of really good players is good enough to get them past a team with like a top 10 player. We'll see.
Yeah, because you take a look at the West, like Jokic, Shea, Ant, Gobert, and Cat, like those three guys.
Kevin Durant,
Booker, Luka, Kawhi,
LeBron, Steph.
A lot of these incredible players. And the Pelicans, no one on an all-star team this year, although I think part of that was just their approach where they're not going too heavily for like one guy's stats or anything. But yeah, we're going to have to see if Zion can kind of level up, if Ingram can do his thing. And if they can do that, this is kind of a dark horse team to make a conference finals run, or at the very least knock off one of those top 4 teams.
I agree. If one of those teams' star players falls off and they keep playing as a good unit, I think they could totally knock somebody off.
Next up, we actually have 3 teams next that are all tied. Right now, the standings show Kings, Mavericks, Suns. It's changed, actually. So before this, I put over in, there's like a little side chat on StreamYard where we record these, and it's a list of all the teams. I had it as Suns, Kings, Mavericks, because that was the order coming into when we started this episode. Since then, the Suns lost, and now
they lost to the Spurs without Wemby?
They did lose to the Spurs.
Oh my gosh.
Sohan masterclass. It is now Kings in the 6th spot, Mavericks in the 7, Suns at the 8, but they're all tied at 41 and 29. Suns are 42 and 30, so they're just like a little bit behind in terms of win percentage. But it's those 3 teams that are all kind of together. Let's do the Kings first, I guess, because they're technically the 6th seed at the moment. For the Kings, I mean, the defense is still bad, and the offense isn't as good as it was last year, where they were like by far and away the best offensive team. Now they're just the 12th ranked offensive team, so that's concerning. Kevin Huerter is now injured too. I think he tore his labrum, if I remember right. I think it was a torn labrum. Yeah, I don't know. De'Aaron Fox has also just not been De'Aaron Fox.
He kind of fell off a little bit.
Yeah, he was starting the year on fire, and then recently it's like, he's still putting up solid numbers, but it's not the nearly 30 points per game we saw from De'Aaron Fox earlier on in the season. It feels like the shooting splits have been declining a little bit. I don't know why. Like, there was a game against the Wizards recently where he shot 15 threes. He went 10 of 30 from the field, 15 threes against the Wizards, who have one of the worst paint defenses in the league. Why are you taking 15 threes?
And with how quick Fox isn't able to get downhill, there's no reason why he shouldn't just be. And they don't have any paint protection. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I worry about the team in terms of their, I guess you could say they're a little bit more balanced now. They're not just this run and gun offensive team. They're a little bit better defensively. I know recently they've been fantastic defensively over this recent stretch. I don't know exactly how many days. There was somebody tweeted a stat at me like, hey, you should cover this in a video. So shout out to you. I'm forgetting who it was. But yeah, the Kings, I still do worry also I don't know if they're going to have, they're not going to have the best player in any of these series they play. Most likely, they're not going to, if say they play the Thunder, Shea's going to be better. They play the Nuggets, Jokic is going to be better. Maybe they face you could argue like De'Aaron Fox versus Anthony Edwards kind of thing, or Sabonis against Anthony Edwards. You could talk about that. But I don't know. They just don't have as much star power as some of the other teams. And
I just don't see the upside with the Kings.
I still think they need to upgrade that 4 spot. I think Harrison Barnes getting traded feels like an inevitable outcome for them this offseason. Him and some capital to upgrade in some way. I don't know who that guy is who's out there, but I do think that's a spot they need to upgrade. Shout out to Keegan Murray right now, torching your Sixers, by the way. He's got 17. Although Maxey had 21 the first quarter, so he's kind of cooking too.
Okay, Maxey.
Yeah,
there we go. There's a flaw right there. No guard defense.
Yeah, their defense has been better as of late. I just don't know if I trust them in a playoff series. It's come at the cost of some of their offense, which was kind of their calling card. They just feel like they don't have that identity that a lot of these other teams do.
Reminds me of Miami a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Where they just don't have a solidified identity, kind of.
They just don't move me.
They just don't move you. Okay. We'll go with that. Brian's concern is that the Kings don't move him. I mean, I do think the Kings are interesting in a series.
Oh, 100%. They're not going to just die flat, but it's the kind of same thing with the Heat. I just feel like both those teams have good rosters, but just don't really seem to have that identity that they've had in the past. And I couldn't really see either one of them making a run. I don't know. Maybe that's just a shot in the dark, but I can see some parallels between the two.
All right. We'll leave it at that. That Ryan says the Kings have no motion.
They don't move me.
Next up, we'll do the Mavs, who are at the 7th spot at the moment.
Who will save Luka?
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie's been great.
Ramadan Kyrie, man.
Kyrie's been cooking here in Ramadan, and really all season. Kyrie's been fantastic.
Yeah, he has been good.
When he's been healthy. For me, it's just the defense. I mean, their defense sucks. Like it's post All-Star break, they have the 24th defense in the NBA. It's been really bad. Offensively, they're still juggernaut. It feels like a lot of nights out there. You know, Luka's going to give you a ton of points. They've been the 5th best offense since the All-Star break. He's going to always do his thing. And I do think having a playoff riser we know in Luka is huge. Kyrie's also had some he's had some amazing playoff series, although most recently for the Brooklyn Nets, he was really bad against the Celtics, although that was a really good Celtics team. So it's tough to really gauge that. But I do worry about, who else is going to, who's the third guy for them? Yeah. Is it Tim Hardaway Jr., who's the definition of a streaky player, like maybe the streakiest guy in the entire NBA? Is it him? Is it PJ Washington, who's been meh, I would say, since coming over to Dallas? He hasn't been fantastic, hasn't been bad. He just, he's still, I think, figuring out his role over there. Is it I just don't know who it is. Like Dante Exum, could he do it some nights?
Daniel Gafford.
A lot of teams have this established like a 1, 2, and a 3 kind of thing. I feel like the Mavs don't really have that. And that combined with the lack of defense scares me with them in a series. Luka is going to be the best player in a lot of series outside of like playing Denver, but I don't know how it goes beyond that for this team. I trust Luka. I just don't trust a lot of the other guys on their roster.
I think if Luka's not averaging 40-point triple doubles, I don't think they take any series.
He's going to have to do a lot to get them wins.
I think no matter how awful the defense is, if Luka is just going full Luka mode, I think they'll beat anybody. But that's asking a lot for him to do that night in and night out.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see them and the Clippers play in a series. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I do. I also really want to see that. That's just, it feels like it's always destiny every time.
Luka and Kyrie against Harden, Paul George and Kawhi. It just seems like so much fun.
It does, yeah. I mean, they've got the history, of course. Luka's played them 2 out of the 3 times he's been to the playoffs. So maybe this will be Luka's revenge finally after losing the first 2 times. Next up, we have the Suns, who are at the 8th spot right now, 42-30, 8.5 games back of the 1 seed. The Suns just haven't been as good as they were supposed to be.
They troll. The Suns troll.
Oh, they are the definition of a team that trolls. They are crazy, like inconsistent. Specifically, like it could be the same game, and they will.
If Damian Lillard was a team, he'd be the Phoenix Suns.
If Dame was a team,
yeah.
You calling Dame a troll?
Oh, Dame is such a troll.
All right, Ryan also saying that Dame's a troll here. A lot of shots thrown here at the end of the podcast episode.
It's just the thing with Phoenix is, like, how do you have your big guys healthy and you lose to a Wemby-less Spurs like that? It's losses like that that just like.
I need.
You're not going to see the Celtics or the Nuggets do that. You know what I mean?
You will see the Celtics blow a 30-point lead to the Hawks, though. You will see that.
Yeah, they didn't lose to Wemby-less Spurs, though.
Okay, it didn't happen this game. Like Book had 36, 6 and 4. Durant had 29, 8 and 6. Beal had only 9, 5 and 6. But like those guys went crazy, and it just didn't even matter. Yeah, honestly, kind of
what's their defense ranked? Is it defense?
The defense for them has been like it's been better. Like it hasn't been bad, like really bad this season. They're the 13th ranked defense. Offensively, they are top 10. Really, the big thing for them is specifically in fourth quarters. If you want to talk about trolling, this team loves to throw away fourth quarters. I think I mentioned this stat to you. I made a whole video talking about it because it was so baffling to me. Let me see what the number's at now. Yeah, so the second worst net rating in the NBA, if you didn't watch my video out there to all the listeners, the second worst net rating in the fourth quarter in the NBA goes to the Miami Heat, who in the fourth quarter of games have a minus 6.4 net rating. So they're not very good in fourth quarters, which I think we kind of already knew this, that they were the same thing last year.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns fourth quarter net rating is a minus 14.3.
Oh my God.
Which is over double the other worst one. Now tonight against the Spurs, they were only outscored by 1 in the fourth quarter, but it's been a reason why they've lost so many games. They've collapsed in the fourth quarter so many times this season. For reference, I'm going to double check this number so I don't get it wrong. Worst net rating in NBA history. I believe it's minus 15.2 net rating in a season. It gave me the worst franchise net rating. minus 15.2, which is the 93 Mavs and the 2012 Bobcats, who have the worst record in NBA history. And that's a minus 15.2 net rating. The Suns' net rating is eerily close to the worst teams in NBA history in fourth quarters.
That's an insane stat. Absolutely.
And it's a team with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, like guys who feel like they've done this before, but they suck in those high leverage moments, which is concerning for me going towards the playoffs or in a play-in game. And outside of those three guys, there are not a lot of players I trust on this team. I don't know if Nurkic could be the center and the rim protector for a team that competes at the highest level. Grayson Allen has been great all year, but he's, just kind of spotting up shooting threes. He's not going to create a lot of shots. Their bench is super weak. Like they've been dealing with some injuries, some guys here and there, but I just don't know. Like they're giving legitimate minutes here and there to Bol.
Yeah, I should not be seeing Bol highlights on my timeline in March.
And Drew Eubanks is like out there too. Like the depth is bad. And the problem for the Suns is this is like the team. Like maybe going into next year, they can pick up some pieces here and there to round out the roster a little bit more. But for the most part, this is the squad. You gave up everything to build this team.
I'm not trying to be like a hater or anything, but I think you and I both agreed with this. I think their biggest mistake was trading for Bradley Beal instead of spreading the love a bit on their roster.
Yeah, and it's not like Bradley Beal's been bad, and I do think he helps this team. It's just I wonder if there was a way where they could build out a more
well-rounded team,
a more cohesive supporting cast, around their, Booker and Kevin Durant.
I think a Booker Kevin Durant duo with a really good supporting cast is just as good as any of these other teams. It's just,
I mean, with the problem is it just feels like with the talent on the roster with like Book and Kevin Durant, it feels like they should be so much better. Even though guys have been injured at times, there's still been so many games. Like, what's their Suns record when Bradley Beal? I don't know if it's going to let me do three players. I was going to try and see what their record was with the big three.
It might.
I mean, if we're just taking a look at Bradley Beal, they're 19-12 this season with Bradley Beal in the lineup. For some reason, it only gave me Bradley Beal stats on StatMuse. Like, that's concerning. The fact that they're not winning games when their stars are playing. What's Suns record when Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant are playing? Let's try that. They are 23-16 when Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal are playing. When it's Bradley Beal and Booker, it is, for some reason, it gave me 20. It gave me just Devin Booker's record with the team. It doesn't matter. The point is they've been struggling. Even when guys are healthy, they're hurt. It definitely impacts them. But even with their guys out there in the court, they've just lost so many games where it feels like they should have won, or at least they had a chance to make a statement. With Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, maybe anything's possible in a first-round series. I think this seems probably a first-round exit at this point, which is a massive failure for what they did going into this year. And last year at the deadline, trading for KD in the first place.
I think Frank Vogel's gone if they lose first round.
I wouldn't be surprised. Part of me feels like they might give him at least the start of next season to see what he can do, because maybe they make some changes. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
I would disagree only because I feel like the windows now, like Kevin Durant is like an aging superstar. Like you don't have time to give Frank Vogel more time. If it didn't work, then screw it. You got to try something else. I don't know.
That's true.
But we'll see. Obviously, this is problems for now. I would just say biggest problem for the Suns is just the fact that they have not been clicking, and they just have not been playing to their caliber. And even when the stars are good, they don't really. I feel like when their big three is playing, it should kind of strike fear into people. I don't know if it really does. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like back when the Nets had their big three, like I was like, as an Eastern Conference fan, like I was like, oh shoot, like that worries me a bit. Or even like the Celtics, like when they got Kristaps, I was like, oh my God, you put Kristaps with Tatum and Brown. I'm like, that's pretty intimidating as like an opposing fan. But just you would think that the Durant, Beal, Booker thing would have the same effect, but it just really hasn't.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. Yeah, the inconsistency is probably, if I had to put it into one word, it's just, or I guess just lack of. Part of me wonders if the collapses they've had is because they reached those big moments and guys haven't played together a ton, and it just they don't really know what to do in those times. I don't know. All right, we can hurry up here through the last few. We've got three teams left. And the Lakers, the Warriors, and now the Rockets. They're trying to push their way into the play-in. The Lakers are seemingly solidifying themselves more and more at that 9 spot. They're 39-32. The offense has been a lot better recently, but the defense has taken a bit of a step back. For me, maybe the biggest concern is the coaching. I think Darvin Ham's not a great coach. There have been a number of times this season where he's made just baffling decisions with the lineups, with the rotations. With LeBron and AD, it feels like they can do almost anything, but I don't know if I trust Darvin Ham as the captain of the ship, I guess you could say, leading this team forward. I also do worry about the consistency beyond LeBron and AD. I think they're going to do great stuff, but is D'Lo going to be the D'Lo we've seen as of late?
Up and down.
Yeah, are we going to see the D'Lo that's from last year's playoffs, specifically when he got I think it was against the Warriors that he got benched even because he just wasn't playing super well?
Yeah.
Are we going to see that D'Lo? Are we going to see D'Lo's even had moments in press conferences this season where it seems like he's calling out Darvin Ham or is very clearly unhappy with him. So there's still seems like there's a bit of friction between Darvin Ham and the overall locker room. So there's that. There's, is Jared Vanderbilt going to be playing? What's happening with Gabe Vincent? He hasn't played in forever. What does this team look like? I saw you smile there. Did you even remember that they had Gabe Vincent at this point?
I only remember because we were slamming his overs when they first traded for him, and then he got hurt in the third game. It feels like.
Yeah, he hasn't played in so long.
It's almost like he hasn't played in so long. Can he even be realistically a part of their team?
I don't know. He played 5 games to start the season. He hasn't been here in forever. So is he even going to be part of the rotation?
That's crazy.
Yeah, we'll soon, Gabe. So for the Lakers, I think coaching is kind of the big thing, and then just who beyond LeBron and AD is going to be consistent for you. Mm-hmm. The Warriors, the concern for them is if they even make the play in the first place. I don't know.
Lack of urgency, I think, for the Warriors is a big concern too. They don't really Did you see that thing where that guy sent that long message to Steve Kerr's son? Did you see that on Twitter?
No,
you didn't. It went kind of viral. Some guy sent Steve Kerr's son, whose name is Nick. He sent him a long DM, saying your dad's rotations are terrible. Why is Steph not coming back in until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when we're literally playing for our lives right now? Every game matters. So Warriors fans are starting to turn on Steve Kerr, and I've kind of been a proponent of Steve Kerr's a little overrated for a little bit. So I'm kind of with that, but I just feel like with the Warriors, it's just they've been all over the place. Is Clay going to be Clay or is he going to be Clay? I feel like Clay now versus, Clay back then. They're relying a lot on rookies, which I don't think is a good formula for success. It's just, I don't know, man. They're tough. They're really tough.
You were talking about teams not moving you. The Warriors do not move me.
I didn't want to repeat myself. I was going to say it just then. But
they don't, no aura, no juice. Nothing. This Warriors team is just not the Warriors of the past.
Twitter user 3Cone and YouTuber does not get moved by the Golden State Warriors.
It's just I've seen for some reason they've been asking analysts oh, what happens if the Thunder play the Warriors in the first round? And people are oh, the Warriors would beat them. I think the Thunder sweep them. The Thunder are just a way better team at this point. They still have Steph Curry, they have Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. These guys have had so much experience. It's not the same Klay. Draymond's great. This is also not the same Steph Curry. I think Steph has taken a step back. It's not a massive step back.
Steph Curry is washed.
He's not washed. It is not a massive step back. I still think he's a top, 6 or whatever we want to go with player. I'm not going to get into player rankings.
I agree with you, though. I'm going to say that.
I think he's taken a little bit of a step back, just to the point where he can't carry this team on his own. He can't do it. And it's not his fault. He shouldn't have to. That shouldn't be his burden to bear as a 36, 37-year-old superstar. It shouldn't be up to Steph Curry to lead this team in, or play really heavy minutes every night and try and will them to the playoffs. He could maybe do that in the past, and he tried to do it back in 2021 when the whole team was injured, and he nearly got them there. This is supposed to be the point where he has Clay back. He's got Draymond here. He's got Wiggins, who has fallen off a cliff since he was key to their championship run, the most random All-Star appearance ever because he's not been the same guy.
You had 3 top picks, Kuminga, Moody, and Wiseman.
They fumbled the hell out of the Wiseman pick. That was if they picked LaMelo there, imagine where they are at this point with LaMelo Ball.
Or traded that pick for someone good.
Yeah, or even traded the pick. It felt like they probably should have made some move at the deadline. They didn't go ahead and do that. Maybe they do something in the offseason. Is Clay going to be back? I feel like he's going to be an Orlando Magic for some reason. But
I remember you said that.
I'm going to keep pushing that in case it happens. Then I'll really, I'll have that under my belt.
The Warriors, no aura. All right, got it.
Pretty much. They're not the same team anymore. Like you said, I don't think that urgency is really there. But also, I think just more so than the urgency, I just don't think they're that good, which is weird to say about a Warriors team. Anyways, the Rockets, right behind the Golden State Warriors. Like the fact that they might even catch them is insane. What is the score of the?
That should be that should be the Warriors' concern. They let the Rockets close in on them.
The Rockets are right there. Like it's concerning. With the Rockets win,
not moved.
I did see Draymond say that, and he should be worried because the Rockets are right there. Now, one thing that does help the Warriors is the Rockets have a really hard schedule the rest of the way. They have the 7th hardest strength of schedule remaining according to Tankathon. They have to play the Thunder on Wednesday on the second half of a back-to-back, I think. Or no, because they're not playing tomorrow. They played tonight. So it'll be there'll be a day in between. But they'll play the Thunder. They will play the Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Magic, the Mavericks twice, and the Heat the rest of the way. That's 7 of their games. They do have a game against the Spurs and the Hornets amongst those teams. And I think they play the Jazz a couple of times. So they have, actually, no, they might have already. I think they played the Jazz. Did they play the Jazz tonight? They've had a bit of an easier schedule recently on this.
Jazz is playing Dallas tonight.
Okay, they played the Blazers tonight. That was one of the teams that they're going to have to play. They do have the Jazz 2 more times. Okay, I was right. So they have some easier games left, but it's not a guarantee. Like they're going to have to outwin the Warriors by at least a game if they want to make it into the play-in tournament. Now the Warriors don't have an easy schedule either. Like they have to play the Heat, they have to play the Magic, the Mavericks, the Rockets themselves on April 4th. That could be a massive game. The Lakers, the Pelicans. But the Warriors also do have the Jazz 2 times, the Blazers, the Hornets, the Spurs. Although, I mean, the Spurs beat the Suns tonight. Why is everyone
playing the Hornets and the Spurs, bro?
I don't know, man. I don't know why everyone has the Spurs and the Hornets at the end here. I think we play the Hornets and we have the Hornets and Spurs too to end it out.
Dude, poor Hornets, man. They got a tough schedule.
They actually have the 2nd hardest strength of schedule remaining. Listen to their the Suns, which doesn't bode well for them either. The Hornets have to play the rest of the way. Celtics twice, Thunder, Clippers, Cavs twice, Magic, and Mavericks.
Who made that?
They just said if imagine if the Hornets at this point were like fighting for the play-in and they get to the end of the season and they're just getting like pummeled by all these great teams. Schedule Maker does not like the Hornets. It's tough. For the Rockets, though, if they make the play-in, I mean, the biggest thing is just that Şengün. We don't know when he's going to be back, if he's going to be back. But Jalen Green's been playing amazing. Like they're playing with house money, I feel like at this point. If they make it into the play-in, that's a massive success in the first place. I didn't think they were going to be there. I don't think you thought it either. Like it felt like at least 10 teams that were comfortably above them, maybe even 11, depending on where the Grizzlies were at. Obviously, it didn't go great for them with all the injuries. But the fact that they might pass the Warriors is crazy because there were a lot of people saying the Warriors could win the West this year before the season, that people were really high on them. I wasn't as high as a lot of people. But like it's been,
I don't think I was either. I think I had them pretty low.
I think we had them when we did our predictions around like the 6th spot or like because we had the Thunder, I think, at the 6th spot.
I think it might have been 7 or 8.
I don't know.
I don't think we were that high. We'll have to go.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and check. But anyways, I mean, those are all the teams. The Jazz are, I don't know if they're mathematically eliminated or not, but they're out of it. On the other side in the East, the Brooklyn Nets are technically not out of it, but they're not going to make it either. Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, every team at this point, kind of our main concerns and our overall thoughts on them at this point. I feel like this was a good way to, go ahead and catch up on what we've missed since we've been gone for a little bit. We'll be back here continuing to talk to you all, hopefully weekly. The next episode, we haven't talked about what it could be yet, but I know, it could be fun for the both of us to do my whole pressure thing, maybe like how much pressure teams are under. What was the other idea I sent you to that we could have potentially done tonight? It was confidence in playoff teams. I feel like that could be fun to do. Like kind of just say on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are we in each of the teams?
That'd be a good tier list.
That would be a good tier list. We could also even do, and let us know if you make it to this point in the episode, which of these topics you want to see potentially next episode. We could also do we could take a look where the bracket is a week from now and break down, what our predictions would be if the playoffs started that day. Mm-hmm. If we want to do just kind of that preview. Obviously, when the playoff bracket is officially set, we'll do official predictions for the playoffs and break down the playoffs as they happen. So, subscribe to the channel to see more podcast episodes. Leave a like and rate it 5 stars over on Spotify if you're there pre-download. Comment down below. I was going to say that.
Aura. Comment Aura.
Okay, just sure. Just comment. Or I was gonna say comment that the Heat don't move
This
Ryan.
pod moves you.
Comment that the podcast moves you in the comments down below if you made it to the end of the episode. We appreciate you all as always. Ryan, you have anything you want to wrap up with real quick here?
Nah, man. It's just I appreciate anyone tuning into NBA with March Madness going on, just because I know March Madness kind of takes the forefront with that. Which I know we didn't talk about that at all, but it's been pretty fun. It's been a good time.
It's been fun. Both the men's and the women's brackets have been really fun so far. Although in the men's bracket, I started off 7 for 7. I was feeling really good, and now my bracket is an absolute disaster because for some reason I picked like 30 upsets. I was like, "This is the year."
What's your worst pick? What's your worst pick?
Let me go ahead and take a look at my bracket real quick.
I'll tell you mine. I picked TC to get to the Final Four, and they lost, so that was pretty bad.
TCU? Oh God.
Yeah. Well, I feel like every year, like a 7 or an 8 seed kind of makes a run to like win a division, so I just picked them.
I did make a bracket that is in the 92nd percentile, so that's cool. But that's not the bracket I entered in anything. The bracket I entered in stuff is called the Prophecy, and the Prophecy is not being fulfilled at all. My worst pick was probably what did I have?
I also picked McNeese. It's a Sweet 16. That was pretty bad.
Ooh, I think that makes 2 of us. I think I also picked McNeese.
I had a McNeese Samford game.
Bro, me too. We were in the same boat. Okay, so this is the reason why we're both disasters at the moment, because we both were believing. I mean, I had Kentucky going to the Final Four, so that's
I had them out. Kentucky always chokes too.
Ooh, you know who else I had going to the Final Four, and we can wrap up with this? St. Mary's.
Oh no!
Not a great pick. With that being said,
must stink, bro. Oh my god.
I have Purdue winning, so there is still a chance for it to, get some big points with that. But yeah, it's in the 21st percentile. That bracket sucks.
Jesus Christ!
I should have entered the other one. I did. The other one I went way more.
In the Sweet 16, I thought that was one of my good picks. I thought that was pretty.
That was a good pick. Yeah, DJ Burns believer.
I was.
That's the GOAT right there. Shout out to Matt, DJ Burns believer. Which, by the way, I talked to Matt recently, and he said he would be down to hop on the podcast and host some games for us at some point soon. So we're gonna need Matt to do that. Matt, I'm sure
we're gonna get a host. Oh man.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get Matt on here. Y'all aren't ready for the legend himself, Matt, to make his debut on here. And
DJ Matt
host some games for us. Shout out to Hotline. But yeah, I think that's all we got for y'all today. Like I said earlier, leave a like and subscribe. Drop that the pod moves you down below in the comments if you remember. And we'll see you all at some point soon. Take care. Peace. Hopefully your bracket's doing a lot better than ours. At all better. Ours sucks.